Good evening and welcome to the City of Groton Committee of the Whole for Monday, March 24th, 2025. We are in council chambers and a joint meeting with Zoom. And with that, we'll have a roll call.
Mayor Hedrick, Deputy Mayor Depot, Councilor Talley, Councilor Sheffield, and Councilor Norris.
Okay, we'll start with new business, Public Works Pelletier amended winter contract. So Bill, if you could come up, make sure the microphone's on. Okay, go ahead.
So we have phase 3 coming up for the renovation project, and based upon further investigation of everything that went down with the renovations, as they were about to begin, we had noticed that there was not a contingency built into the project, and based upon the age of the building, as far as when this was erected originally in 1964, that would mean that there would have to be no instances that come up based when they go to install the windows, whether it be brick that's not well, any sort of masonry that doesn't work out. And so off that, we kind of felt it would be suitable to go ahead and do what's standard to put into contingency within the project.
So basically what we're doing is we're adding a 10% contingency to this project in the event that we may need it. And with that, I'll open the floor for discussion. Councilor Sheffield.
What specific construction, what parts are we looking to start with, or what location?
So we've actually already started. We're on phase 3 right now.
Okay.
That's what started actually today.
Okay.
So what is happening is any windows that get demoed, we have, there's asbestos, things like that. They have sealed off, and then when they take the windows out on demo, if there's any block, that's to be cut into. Everything else. Based off of the age, that means that there can't be anything that goes wrong. So anything structural per block, anything along those lines, all has to withhold structural integrity when they go to put the window back in and frame it.
So the logic behind this was, instead of if you find something having to come to the council for each change order, we're gonna add the 10% contingency. And then, we've been fortunate so far, but we may need contingency, so that's why we're adding the 10%. Any other questions or comments?
Yes, please.
Councilor Norris?
So, the original funds that were approved, is that all spent, or what percent, or how much of that is spent?
As far as the original funds that were approved, it was all, as far as allocated, I can't, as of right now, I have to get all the purchase orders together with what we've approved for certified pay orders, things of that such. But what we have right now is what it went to bid for was the bare bones of what the project cost would be. Generally, you have your contingency in case of anything else that could go wrong, or not that it will, but could go wrong if it does, to plan ahead. And that wasn't included in the original total with the bid. So that's why we have what we're coming up with as far as the 10%, just the industry standard coming across.
The reason why I ask is, the original project already had a contingency. So when you say that was bare bones, are we now changing the scope, which requires a larger funded amount, of which you're using as a contingency?
Based upon any documents that were presented, we had zero contingency that was built into that budget. It was based off of the bid that was presented when the times came for low bid. That's what came,
Right, there was no contingency
that was built
in the
into it.
original bid. That's why we're asking for the contingency now in the event that we need it. Scope has not changed.
So just to clarify, so the original amount that was, I guess, approved back on January 8th did not include a contingency?
Yes,
That
sir.
is-
I guess I'm a little confused.
Yes, sir. That's exactly it. It so happened that it was a fairly accurate amount up until this point. And it's not so much that things have gone wrong. It's that we just want to make sure that when these things happen, there's 92 windows that are being installed, We want to make sure that there's nothing that can go, that may arise, that can come up. This contingency is standard that would be built into a price. And that's the only thing. It just happened to be something that was not, it was overseen and was not added into the total amount.
As we were getting ready for entering into the third phase, we identified that we did not have any contingency built into the project, and we're trying to correct that now.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Deputy Mayor Depot.
So are you telling me that phase 1 and phase 2 of this project have been completely on budget and not over cost at all?
As of right now, yes, ma'am. There's still punch list items that have to get done, but that's not at the cost of the city. That's per the work that's guaranteed based off the contract.
So from this, can you give a very short summary of what phase 1 and phase 2 were?
Phase 1 was the radiant heat, electrical radiant heat that was done in the pad. There's still punch list items that have to get done to make that upon 100% completion based off of that. And then phase 2 is the storefront. So the door frames, glass, et cetera, that has gone in over in the front. There's still some things as far as different panels and stuff that have to be altered. Installation has to be done to where they might have to be re-put on to where they're 100% flush, et cetera. Things of that nature. It's all, like I said, punch list items that are miscellaneous along the lines. Nothing structural and nothing that's going to impede any along those lines. And then as we're working into phase 3, that's where this kind of comes in.
So when they were doing phase 1, I do remember, I believe, that took longer than expected. So even though that took longer than expected, that did not run over cost of the project?
So again, the stuff that's being done, there's always going to be work that's guaranteed. So the work based off of having the contractor, their work is always going to have that per contract. You have a certain amount of time, whatever it may be with warranties, et cetera. And that's what makes that happen. Just as far as delays that have been put in, that was something that happened as far as time. But with anything else outside of that, it's all factored into the CM that's on that, or GC that's owning the project, not so much the city itself.
Okay. And then can you reiterate, is there something specific or a reason why we're adding the contingency only now at phase 3 and why it wasn't looked at for phase 2?
This was simply an oversight. And as far as this goes, there was things that it was just one of the things when we came upon further investigation, we were looking into transitioning to phase 3 as we were going, that this had just came up and we were looking into everything together and based off of all the windows, et cetera. If there was anything else, any sort of reblock, anything else like that, any other additional masonry that may need to go in place, we looked into it and we're trying to just essentially plan for the unforeseen as of right now. And when we looked at that, that's where we came up with, we realized there was not a sort of contingency that was built into it.
Can I ask Finance Director Uhas,
You have the floor, Deputy Mayor. What's your question?
how this would have gone through your office and not got, what's the process at which, because I know that obviously it involves multiple people whenever we do these, which is probably how that happened, but what is the process it went through and why did this get missed and how are we going to prevent that from happening in the future?
So each department is responsible for writing their own resolution at the time. Sometimes I see them before they go, sometimes I don't, and I usually try to review them, even if at a cow, to make sure we have everything, and this was just an oversight that did get missed. What brought this up is that there is a potential change order that is out there, and that's when this was identified. And what's gonna happen is that if we don't do this, every time there's a change order, it would need to come back to council for approval. And with the windows going in, it's very time sensitive. And if we have to stop to come get a change order approved, it's gonna delay the project, which could potentially add more costs if there are additional change orders. So that's why when we were reviewing it and noticed that was inadvertently omitted, and we just wanted to add it so it would have the same look to a regular project. But this is definitely a lessons learned as to missing of the contingency, and I'll make sure I work with the mayor's office to review anything with projects.
So are you saying that we know this project is gonna go above that number, and that's why we're putting the contingency in?
Not at this point, there's a potential for one, but I don't think we have anything at this
No,
point.
we have absolutely zero
do not
change
have a
orders that
change
have
order.
gone in right now that have been 100% approved and handed in to us at this point in time.
But we're expecting one.
There could be potential for it. That's why we're looking at it with, as far as, you have to think about the time frame with when this building was built, when everything was erected. As they're taking out windows, we have to anticipate that there being zero issues that come about. Based off of the age, everything going forward, you have to plan for something along those lines. It's not feasible to think of everything going exactly 100% right down the line with that. There's time with material where it would eventually wear, and we'd have to consider something along those lines where it could potentially unearth something, even though it has not happened yet. It's essentially planning for the unplanned right now.
So this third phase started today. They started in C8, and they're gonna work around the building. And so what has to happen is we need to remove material, any desks or anything else away from the windows so that they can get there. They will then seal the windows. They will remove and prep the window, then they'll replace the window, and then we'll have to move all the desk material back. We have we have a tight schedule. They're gonna be doing work every day. We're gonna be moving stuff every day. And that's why the schedule was mentioned, because we have people that are gonna be occupying swing space. Some people may be working from home, and those kind of things in order to accommodate this schedule, because I don't wanna be in the controlling path of the schedule. So that's why the schedule's important.
So, just to clarify, change orders are not going to come to the council to get approved on this project.
Correct, it'd be just like a normal project where if there are change orders, as long as it's underneath that contingency amount. That's what that contingency is for those small change orders, so there's no additional approval needed. Because if not, in theory, every change order would have to come back to council, whether it was for $1 or 5,000 or.
Precisely.
Well, only a change order that's above the amount that we've already voted on.
Correct. So what this will allow is, we're not planning on this, but essentially change orders of additional 62,000. So it'd be just like any other project.
While I understand that that makes all of your lives more difficult, I'm not inclined to, I think it's to not have the change orders come here for the amount over the project cost. I don't see how that makes sense, considering this oversight on the project. I think the council should be aware of every change order that's above that amount. I don't know that that means that we need to delay the project for that. But I would look for maybe from the mayor's office to, not for approval, but at least for notice to the council that we're aware of every change order on this project. Because,
Well, right now, every change order is gonna have to go to you, because we will be above the authorized amount for the project.
The authorized
But-
amount, so the amount that you had just was a low bid. There was not a contingency factor that was built in to that low bid. That's the reason why we're coming forth now. So this would be done normally at the beginning of the project. That's when this amount we tallied into with what was approved for funds right there. It's not that this is an overage. This is an industry standard practice that you have built into a project to account for anything else that wouldn't lead to an amount greater than what the project cost would be.
I understand what you're saying, and I get that. My issue is that I just asked, are we planning for this project to be above that amount? And all three of you said no. But then I said, what happens if we want to see all the change orders. And then I got an answer that basically it's definitely going to be above that number. Those are two different answers. That's what I have a
They're not-
problem
they're-
with.
They're not inconsistent. If we have to have a change order, if we spend any more, so the project is in 3 phases. Phase 1 and 2 are complete. If this phase is just to change out the windows, if something happens and it's more than just a regular amount, or if we identify something else, then there's no additional money for that. There would normally be a 10% contingency, and that didn't happen. That was an oversight. Yep, we made a mistake. But now, any amount is gonna have to come because it's gonna be above what the amount of the bid is.
So you're saying that on this project, we've spent already $621,699?
No,
No. So each of these, you gotta remember, there's phases as you go through the project. This, as far as the city-wise and the project itself goes, is phase 3. But there are also payment phases that we go through as well.
Right.
So each of those payment phases have chunks upon work that is completed to a certain extent. And then off that, that's when you get to phase 1 being 100% complete or complete up until a punch list has been itemized, done, or I should say identified, itemized, done, and then completed, and then you moved on to phase 2. Then you'd have the same thing, punch list items. Yes, that comes up because there's things that won't always rear their head immediately. So you have a punch list that they will do upon that. They were originally gonna be doing those at the very end of the project. We identified certain things, went forth, and then have made lists per phase to go ahead and be completed. That's how that goes. It's not the total 621,000 that has been totally spent thus far. It's not. As each phase goes and the work that is completed to 100% and okayed by the, engineering and CM firm, along with the city, when we have oversight of the project, once it's all agreed upon across the board, then we go ahead, pay that phase, and that continues on. This is, again, an industry standard, and based off of what we have per the erection of the building, and what we are trying to make sure that we're doing the right thing about as far as planning for the unplanned, that's what this covers.
I understand that. So I guess give me an example where bringing a change order to the council is going to cause a problem on the project.
Because in theory, it'll take a 2-week approval process at a minimum, depending on when something's identified. What I can do is, which may help with this, is get the last paid invoice that we paid to the mayor to distribute out, and it'll show you like the completion to date and kind of the amount spent. That may help too with that, if that's something that the council would like.
Honestly, I would have liked that to be here today, but I just am reluctant because these things that come to us after the fact that, oh, we made a mistake a year and 2 months ago that we just noticed, which in the director's defense, he has not been here that long, so he did not make this error. But it went through several people's hands and didn't get noticed. So I'm reluctant to give away power from the council of oversight on a project that has seen delays and that this was not noticed before, when we currently would have the oversight of anything over that project cost. That's my issue. I don't know how the rest of the council feels.
Councilor Sheffield.
Now, we say we're in phase 3 of this project. Now, how many phases are there going to be?
3.
Just the 3. So we're in the final phase now.
Yes, sir. And then based upon that final phase is when we'll also have at the end of that, any punch list items that are discovered, listed upon that by either the city or the firm we have with us, represent as far as construction management, identify, that will be put down, and then we're gonna have all of those punch list items completed.
Okay. Within this budget that you're looking for us to allocate right now?
Yes, sir.
The budget that is already allocated.
Right.
budget
That-
that is already approved.
Okay, so we won't need to, again, for this final phase, need to go, if there is something else, will additional funding be needed if there's other things after that? So this money here is supposed to be for what we need.
So putting it this way, Counselor, it's, again, the money we're asking for, that's the industry standard when it comes on that. This was something, like I said, that was just oversight that came in from the low bid. When this number that was in here, that we have that was approved, that wasn't factored in. Normally, based off whatever bid amount you're gonna have, you'll take upon your contingency amount, wherever that's gonna be, and per that is where you get this additional amount. So that would have been added to the original 621,000 off the rip. Right now, this is just when we noticed it, and per this phase is when there's probably the most likelihood for something that could come up. Do we know it's going to? No. But again, we're trying to plan for the unplannable right now. That's what's happening. There's no way of predicting it. There could be nothing wrong, knock on wood. There could be things that go wrong. It's just the age of the building, age of the masonry, anything along those lines that could be that. And again, this is not asking for, so no, this is just an industry standard that you would put into the original bid that was not done.
Now, the stairs, the cement work out on the front doors here now what phase was that, to do the stairs going, into the building? That was phase
That
one.
was phase one.
Well,
Wait,
No, sir, the stairs were not part of that. It was the front pad that we have for the radiant electrical heat. That was phase one.
yeah, we
okay.
didn't do anything with the stairs.
Well, that's what it means,
Yeah,
and
the pad itself was phase one.
I've already, just coming in tonight, see concerns where there's rust into the grates area, and then will that be something that,
That's
Will
per the
need-
punch list. Yep, yes, sir. So that's based off of anything like that. That's work that has been done. It's not 100% completed. The project is still owned and responsible by the construction management firm that's there. They have that. They're the ones that took it in with each material that was ordered, placed, the way concrete was poured, et cetera. They're the ones that are responsible for that. That is not at the cost of the city.
okay, that's why I want to make sure, because it
Yes, sir.
seems like there's going to be additional work that I think that's going to be needed for the entryways there, so
Mm-hmm.
hopefully it doesn't come out of pocket anymore out of us.
No, sir. At least for what I hope not. That's it. There's nothing that should be there. They're responsible for everything that's per contract. They have their work. It's guaranteed. That's that. It's not done. We haven't taken the full ownership yet. There's nothing that comes to us on that.
Okay, I'm done for now.
Okay. Counselor Norris?
Yeah, few things. So, I get it. Something happened and we forgot to put in the 10% contingency. I got that, and yes, it's industry standard, all that kind of stuff. Let's go beyond that. On the original bid, did it lay out the cost, because I don't remember, I apologize, of each of the 3 phases?
I believe it was just one base bid for the entire project.
Okay, so the very next question that I have to ask, how much have we spent so far on this project? The reason why I ask that is, I get the contingency, but it would be interesting to know how much is already left over, what the contractor is predicting that phase 3 would cost without any unseen issues. Just like, this is where we're gonna do it, this is what it's gonna cost. So let's go with that question first.
So per what Mr. Uras had said before, that we can get you a certified payroll from what we had previously, and that can give you what was paid up to date as far as the payment phases go, and that can give you what's left in the contract based off of the initial amount. And then from there, as far as per the cost, it was all materials that are factored in already. That's how they got the total bid for this. That's where it came into. The bid itself wouldn't go up. These are, what we're asking for here are contingency costs. That's not increase on the material sense.
Right, but I gotta tell you, from a project manager standpoint, if you're gonna push the line industry standard and you're asking for that, then I would hope you would have went with the industry standard that we would ask, how much have you spent?
That's,
So while I appreciate you saying yes, it's industry standard, but we also have to be somewhat responsible for the amount we're spending, and you're not giving us that information. So I'm gonna go to the next thing. Could you tell me, has everything that was said to be done in phase 1 and 2, other than a punch list, because punch lists are minor, very minor things, has everything been done?
as far as punch list items like you're saying, right now, we're not foreseeing anything as far as a signed change order goes. Right now, we're literally looking at punch list items that have to come up and be identified. We have to wait as it goes and see that. There could be issues that come up. It's stuff that you can't see. That's why you have the punch list. So if there's issues that do come up, whether it be fitment issues, material that rusts, something along those lines, that's where you're gonna take this into consideration. As far as with the payment items, that's all based off of where we are in the phase. So although we have 3 phases per the project, payment phases are different. When they've delivered certain materials per contract, whether they've gone through and installed certain items per contract, whether that's at 90%, not 100% completion, because there's punch list items, things of that sort. That's where we work with the engineering company that we have to go and work out where we're at as far as payment process. So it could be 90%, it's not 100% completion, 100% payment, it could be 92%, it could be something along those lines. So that's where those punch list items, in order to get paid 100% per the phase we have in these projects, the 3 phases, that's where that would come into play. So that's why it's broken down into multiple payments, multiple certified payrolls, anything along those lines, and that's where that kind of goes to.
All right, hold on a minute. Counselor, hold on a minute. Counselor Norris,
Project management all day long, so I understand phase of payment.
Yes, sir.
understand.
My question,
Counselor Norris, hold on a second. Hold on a second. Director Uhas, you said you would provide some information we can get to the council that may directly address this, right? Okay. So Counselor Norris, the finance director, is going to give you the last payment information. So we'll send that to the council so that the council has that. And I think that will address one of your questions. So you now have the floor.
but my question is not a money question. I'm simply asking, has project 1 of phase 1 and 2, other than punch list items, been completed?
So the project thus far has been completed to the contract.
Minus punch list items.
I don't know what that means. So is phase 1 complete?
It is complete minus punch list items. So per contract, with the exception of punch list items, everything has been
Here's my
completed.
next question. So usually punch list items do not cost a need for a change order or additional use of contingency.
Right.
So I'm moving forward and I'm assuming therefore, phase 1 and 2 are all done except for punch list. Got it. So we're saying, and I get it, we're asking for 10% contingency just in case something happens during phase 3.
Yes, sir.
Oh, yep, okay. If something is identified,
Our point is, there's been no change orders in phase 1, unofficial change orders in phase 1 or 2 at this point.
that's true, right? We didn't get any change orders,
We have nothing signed as of yet.
okay?
Oh, okay, then that leads me to my next question. Has there been any request for a change order in phase 1 or 2?
As far as the request going right now, we have everything set per contract. This contingency fund that we're identifying right now is for what could be potentially coming up within phase 3. Based off of the number of windows that are there, the year this was built, and the last time anything was done per any masonry, brick, anything like that as far as window installation. That's where this is coming in. This normally would already be, like I said, and as you know, factored in with project management, you have your cost. It's just this was something we didn't have and was discovered as of now, which is why we're getting it in case something does come up. This is not the further push that we're trying to get on top of it. This was something that we would have already currently. This was just something we didn't see beforehand. And it happened to be identified. That's the only reason why we're coming forward with that.
Okay,
I absolutely agree with you, but my question was, has there been any requests for change orders in phase 1 and 2?
Right now, there is nothing that is an official signed change order that we're going forth because we haven't had anything large enough to identify to go through as far as a change order coming. Right now, if we have something that comes up, it's not foreseen. There's funds right now that we have that we're trying to free up and get moving. That's pretty much all I can really say to you. We have things that, what you're asking us right now is there something that we don't see that we know we're gonna see in the future that we wanna have money set aside for?
That's not what I'm asking. What I'm asking is, in phase 1 and 2, which is complete other than a punch list, was there anything submitted as unofficial change orders? And your answer at first was, well, not officially. So then I'm asking, well, unofficially then, is there a request on the table now for a change order in phase 1 or 2 that has or has not been completed?
Right now, like I said, the one thing that we have that's identified right now in full that we need, is this contingency budget. That's as far as anything,
I got it.
yeah.
Thank you. I got it. Thanks.
Councilor Piazza?
Thank you, Mayor. So I think I'm understanding what Councilor Norris and everybody's asking. So we have 3 phases. The amount that's in here in the resolution is what was originally asked. We missed a contingency. Phase 1, phase 2 is complete. There has not been any requests or already known change orders or any that's going future. I understand the punch list, something could come up from there. But just shake all that out, just shake that off. And so what we're going forward with is phase 3, and the contingency is basically for phase 3, correct?
For what we have right now, this contingency is to cover what we can see that could potentially be coming up with phase 3. This is not saying that this is going to be an issue. That the whole point in this is doing our due diligence to have these funds available in case something happens.
Right,
We're not saying that there's something that's going to rear its head as of right now. If there is
Right.
something,
Right.
this contingency will cover it.
Right.
And this allows us to continue to go forward,
Right.
as you normally would within the project.
I understand.
That's that.
Understood. So the amount, the 600 and plus thousand, was originally passed and voted on for phase 1, 2, and 3.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so because we don't know what's gonna happen in phase 3, we're just applying this contingency. That's basically the base of this.
So this contingency would have been throughout 1, 2, and 3.
Right,
That's the point with that. It was across the board, all phases.
right, so it
where
was
this would
missed.
be.
So it was missed. We didn't need it. We've used the funds basically from the 600-something thousand. But now we're adding the contingency because
We
maybe
could
something came up from 1
potentially-
and 2. It could potentially happen in 3, so we're asking for this contingency that was missed. That's basically what it
Yes,
boils down to.
that's what it was. Based off of when we examined it, risks that we had that could come up, that's why we saw this, and identified the need to come to you guys.
But according to the contract that was signed and agreed to, we don't foresee anything presently. I know when you get into projects, anything, you rip it out and, we didn't foresee that, I understand that, but just when it was, when it was bid on, that was the money. So that is in the contract. This is what we're gonna do, and that's how much it costs originally, without the contingency.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Deputy Mayor Depot.
So, one, I do, before we vote on it at a meeting, if we can get how much is spent on it, on the project so far. But also, what was the original timeline of this project?
I have to go back and look. I won't off the top of my head.
Because my notes say 2 to 3 months, and that's when we voted on it in January of 2024. But that might be the amount of actual working time of the project, not within when we voted on it.
Go ahead, Ron.
I believe the contract, and Bill, you correct me if I'm wrong, went through January, and it needed, that's, we got the extension for it, because there was a lead time for the windows and the storefront and all of that.
February 12th, actually. That was it, February 12th. And we had base per time when the windows were ordered. That was delayed off, and there was, I can't remember the exact delayed date from when manufacturing to when we'd have delivered product, but there was a significant delay that happened that caused us to have to extend everything out further.
Oh, I think that's what my 2 to 3 months note is for, that's how long the windows take to fabricate. So so do we not know what the original timeline of this project was supposed to be?
February 12th.
This year?
Yes, 2025.
Okay,
It might have been February 16th. I can't remember the actual date. It was 12th or 16th.
so,
I'm kind of,
okay, so what is our current timeline for finish date?
April 16th. That's what they're forecasting right now. And they also have weather dates that are factored in, just like today. We had, in case there's anything that comes up that's too much for, or could affect the final product, then they'll have weather days that are built into that.
Okay. I still, again, I understand what you're saying, that it's industry standard. Going back and looking at the proposals, we had this proposal reviewed by a third party, by Lothrop. And they recommended this vendor and that the amount was sufficient for the replacement. Like, they analyzed, the windows that were proposed were different than the windows we had put in the original bid, I believe, or the original RFP. And Lothrop reviewed it and said that it was acceptable, and they're the ones that kind of endorsed, well, their letter is endorsing this vendor as appropriate to do this project. Again, I'm hesitant, but I think that if we have the information that Director Uhas is going to provide, I do think we can vote on it. I'm prepared to vote on it in the next meeting. I don't have a problem moving it to the mayor and council meeting. But I do think that it would be appropriate in this case to at least keep the council aware of any change orders coming in and any cost above that amount. I think especially going into a year where, I'm fairly certain the town is going to raise taxes, just looking at their proposed budget. I don't know that we're going to be able to escape that either. I think we really need to be vigilant on what money we're approving, because taxpayers are looking at these things at cost overruns and wondering why we have them so often, not just us, the town, every town. It's a hot topic right now. And I think that we wouldn't be doing our job as counselors if we didn't scrutinize it a little more heavily, especially in the case that a mistake has already been made on this project. Again, I'm not trying to, shame someone or, any particular person, but I think for us, our responsibility to the taxpayers means that we do have to pay closer attention. That's all.
Counselor Sheffield?
To reiterate, for that contingency, that money can be utilized for all three phases, phase 1, 2, and 3, because I think to slightly piggyback on, a little bit on Counselor Norris, as far as no one has asked for anything for phase 1 or 2. There hasn't been a request that you know of.
So right now, what we have is the stuff that's in there is still owned by the general contractor.
Okay.
So if we, that's the thing, that's why we haven't given full payment across the board with this stuff.
Okay.
Why we have issues that, we're waiting on a punch list item, anything like that, because again, I don't want to say, there could be things that can rear their head. It's not that they will, it's that they can be. That's the whole point of having this contingency that's built in. That's it. But these funds normally would have been in there from the beginning of the project for all three phases as we went. We wouldn't be even sitting here right now. It was, again, something that was an oversight. That was all. And per Lothrop, with what they did, the bid that they saw was, yes, in fact, it is. They approved it based off of everything. That's if there's nothing else that goes wrong per their scope. Everything 100% falls in line. Nothing changes. Nothing goes out of the way. Nothing deliverables, anything along those lines, nothing changes. Yes, that's where they said it was within that scope. That's why nothing's ever perfect. You have your contingency cost that gets factored in based off of that.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Depot?
Can we also get a copy of the executed contract? Thank you.
Okay, is there anything else you need? Okay. Any other questions or comments? And I'll take a motion to move this to mayor and council meeting of April 7th, 2025.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I,
Okay, motion carries unanimously. All right, thank you, Bill. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
Groton Utilities. So Bill will be talking transformers.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and Council. Good evening. So tonight, I have three action items that I'm going to speak to and then seek approval for in a couple of weeks. And they all involve transformer purchases. I'd like to quickly speak to a common backup to each of them, and then I'll speak to the three if that works for you. Currently, we have a lower than normal inventory in stock for transformers. And these go all the way from pad mount transformers for large buildings all the way down to pole mounts. We typically order them every year. The last time that we ordered was 2 years ago. I can speak to the PO that we cut 2 years ago, and I still don't have all of the transformers. The reason why is delivery for these things can take 1.5 to 2 years to get the actual transformer. There's problems from COVID-19 with obtaining materials for the assembly, labor force issues, et cetera. Again, the lead time is up to 2 years. I reached out to Norwich Public Utilities as well as Eversource. They too are feeling the pain with this. Matter of factly, we get into situations where they have jobs or a failure with a transformer, they'll reach to us, do we have one that we can loan them, et cetera. So we're really all feeling the pain for that. Let's see, so, you look at, we put a bid out, we put a package out, we have a number of transformers that we look to order, and I think I can speak to the total of them is, so there's 65, 57, and 14, so comes up to quite a few transformers. We put the price out, and we have 3 proposals that we would like to seek approval for. The first one is for Wesco Emco, and that is the one for 14 transformers, looking for approval for $156,224.20. That's the first one. The second one is through Wesco Eaton Cooper. That is seeking approval for $162,844.00. That's for a total of 65 transformers. And the last one is through Gray Bar Electric, and that is seeking approval for $458,755.95, and that is for 57 transformers.
And I want to draw your attention to that one, because that has a 25% contingency. Bill, you want to go into why
Abs-
we chose 25% for those
Yes.
transformers?
So thank you, Mayor. So the particular reason for that one being higher than the others is that that particular manufacturer is coming in from Mexico, and we're afraid with the tariffs. So just play it safe, we put that number on there just to cover, just in case.
Okay, so any questions on transformers? Deputy Mayor Depot.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to confirm, these are all budgeted expenses that are already planned for in our regular budget.
That's absolutely correct. We have roughly $1 million to work with that we approved. And I think this came up to, the total with all of the transformers included came to, let me see here, 777, 824, and 15 cents. So we're quite a bit under.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Sheffield?
Now, do we need any additional transformers going forward? Because it's that figure of over 700,000, that's 3/4 of what we have, so
Yeah, so
hopefully there isn't.
that's a great question. So the good news is we put it out to several people, and, you know, the prices came in very high. I think one of them was 1.3 million for all of them. And by manipulating the three sources, it worked out really well for us. We have some stock right now, and that's good. So it's just, this is the normal inventory, you know, so a good example is we have a couple of big projects going on. Triton Square, the large apartment complex that you can see just before you cross the bridge. That's 305 apartments up and through there. We have, just that site alone, 5 large pad mount transformers going in there. West Street has projects coming in, you know, where they're gonna do the apartments in the back there. Also down on Gold Star Highway, there are additional apartments gonna be going in. So it gets tricky. So you think about it, Triton Square, that's a big project. It's gonna take them a couple of years to build a building, right? So we place our orders for the transformers, and lo and behold, here we are 2 years into it. They're ready to get the building energized, and we're, you know, calling out to the manufacturer, where are you at? So we really look to stay on top of that. One of the things that I'm going to do next year into the budget is to be more timely with I'm gonna set up better min and max for the inventory, but I'm also gonna look throughout the year as we consume a portion, I'm gonna place an order then. And place an order, you know, so perhaps 3 months into it, 6 months into it, based on the draw off of the transformer. So we're gonna be more mindful as we consume the transformers, and we're gonna be more timely with our orders, so, which should protect us from being any risk, right?
Because one of the challenges we have is that we're basically one big storm away, and it doesn't have to be our storm. It could be somebody else's storm, and then they're gonna need transformers. And then the supply is gonna be you know, people are gonna go to that supply for those transformers, and those are the same transformers we're gonna need in the future. So we are ordering a bunch in advance, and then we are going to continue to order in ahead of time so that we don't run into issues where work is held up because we don't have transformers.
Correct.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'll take a motion to move these 3 resolutions to the mayor and council meeting of April 7th, 2025.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I,
Okay, motion carries unanimously. Next is mini excavator purchase.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. So this is a request to create a purchase order to H.O. Penn for a value of $112,357.35. To break it down, it's 107 007, and we had a 5% contingency on this one, which is an extra 5. So the total is, again, 112, 357.35. A little bit of history on this one. The purchase will be coming from Sourcewell. That is a government and education type of organization that supports companies like us and governments like us for discounted prices. It's a free membership. This particular unit, we have 2 backhoes. The mini excavator, the benefit to us is we have a couple of big jobs coming up. We're going to be doing the lead line inventory project where I've got to do roughly 200 test pits to check, to confirm that we have lead or non-lead feeding into our residences. I've got future construction projects, water and sewer service installs and repairs, water main breaks, hydrant replacements. This particular unit, instead of going out there in the roadways and ripping up the road with our backhoes, the mini excavator adds a lot of benefit for us. It's a safety benefit, the ease of transportation. We can maneuver this smaller unit throughout the streets with traffic, cars parked, et cetera. It also has some additional tools that we don't have. Not only is it compact, it has a small bucket, but also has an attachment, a hammer attachment, which will eliminate the need for our guys to go out and jackhammer. So it really is a tool that I feel that we should have had in our fleet quite some time ago. I think it's a great price for $112,357. It's going to save us time on labor. It's going to, save our guys on their, work, back strain, et cetera, with the jackhammers. I think it's a win for us.
Okay, I'll open the floor for discussion. Counselor Sheffield?
Yeah, I like the low 5% contingency, so I think obviously the benefits the city for having a low contingency, and it seems like a low risk
It is.
purchase. So
Yep.
yeah,
I think they have the machine on stock, so we should hopefully be timely with getting it.
good.
Okay, anyone else? Counselor Piazza?
Just comment, thank you for your thorough explaining of it, and my question was gonna be until you explained it was, is it something we replace or whatever, but there's something we're going to obtain. But in the long run, looking at, high risk of injury using the old stuff and then maneuver around the traffic and all the projects coming up, I think it's a win-win.
It's a win.
When you do the cost and everything, what it's gonna cost. Yeah, thank you.
You're most welcome.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'll take a motion to move this to the mayor and council meeting.
Counselor Norris.
Counselor Norris, you had a question?
Yes, please.
Counselor
Is
Norris,
this
you have the floor.
something, a piece of equipment that would be used on a regular basis, or there are periods of time that potentially it could be shared with roads and highway?
So this is something that I won't be using full-time. It is something that we could share across the city, and I think there's a great opportunity for that. I will tell you, right now, we're currently renting a small mini excavator to do some, clearing up a brush, et cetera. It's something we use every year, so it really, I feel this purchase is gonna offset some costs for us across the organization. So I would agree that to be true.
Thank you very much.
You're most welcome.
Any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none, I'll take a motion to move this to the mayor and council of April 7th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, motion carries unanimously. Lawns and ground maintenance contract?
Yes, sir. So this particular one is for a contract to enter into a 3-year contract with an option for a 3-year renewal for lawn and grounds maintenance with America Grounds and Snow Management. The cost of the contract is $100,000 per year. We put out an advertisement for bids for this particular job. Again, we do it every year. It really includes cleaning up the grounds and grass maintenance, et cetera, for all around the reservoirs, all around all of our pump stations, sewer treatment plant areas, any other common areas that we do. It's a 3-year contract, again, with a 3-year renewal. We put bids out. We had one particular vendor that came in a little bit under, it was $75,000. But they did not meet the insurance. They didn't have the minimum insurance that we require. So again, this is, again, it's just something we do every year. It's just a renewal, setting up for next year. Yep. That's it.
Okay, I'll open the floor for questions. Deputy Mayor Depot?
So who was the contractor that had the previous
Oh,
contract?
I'm sorry. I don't know who currently had it, but we're very dissatisfied with their service. This particular organization has got a couple of really good pluses to it. So they're local. They're out of Groton, which we love, right? So our own community. They have 25 employees staffed, so there's plenty of manpower. And we called 3 of their current references that they're utilizing, all came in with stellar feedback. So we feel very confident with these guys.
And do you know the amount of the annual contract?
The current one?
Yes.
I do not. I can get you that should you wish. Yep. I don't know who we have right now, and I don't have the value for the existing one. I apologize for that. But I know I've heard the guys very unsatisfied.
Could you please, could we get that information before the next?
What information do you want?
Who the current contractor is and what we're paying them
The annual
annually?
amount.
Yeah.
Sure thing.
Okay,
I'm happy to get that.
provide that to our office, we'll get that to
I
council.
can get you that. Sure.
Thank you.
You sure?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Counselor Sheffield?
You said the previous, like I said, it's a 3-year was this current deal right now 3 years, or was this annually?
Finishing up the 3-year, and that's why we put it back out the bid. We were not satisfied, and we want it back out the bid. So that's
Okay.
what we got. Yep.
So this is again 3 years, and then it'll be actually a renewal after after 3 years. Okay.
Absolutely,
All
sir.
right, Thank
Yep.
you. Yep.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'll take a motion to move.
Yes, please.
Counselor Norris?
So Bill, can you tell me how many labor hours are we looking at in this contract?
I don't have that, Counselor. I can look into that for you. So it's not only just seasonal, the grass care, all of that stuff. We get involved with brush cleanups. We have some properties up in Ledger that we also take care of, that this company will satisfy for us. I can speak quickly to some of the quotes that came in. Again, this one we wish to go with is $100,000. The other one was $134,725. And then there's a large organization which I feel truly did not need the work, and they threw a high number out at us. It was $525,000. So this one's 100. I feel very confident with them. Again, we did our due diligence. We reached out to everyone, 3 good references, and everybody's thrilled with these guys. And they are local, which is nice. I know the current organization we have is not local, and that's been part of the difficult problems, that we've been having.
Thank
You're most welcome.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'll take a motion to move this to the mayor and council of April 7th, 2025.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you all.
Thank
Look
you.
at your information. Yep,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay, lastly, planning and economic development update. So Leslie and Sierra.
Good evening. Nice to see you all again. I'm going to go first. I'm going to talk, I just want to give you all a kind of a high-level overview of what has gone on with the zoning regulations so that you're aware and you can talk to your constituents about it, because I know they've had questions, even though we've done an awful lot of outreach. And so, and then Sierra will talk about resiliency. So I did send everyone to your council email. I sent you today a set of links where you can go for more information, so that I'm not giving you all of the minute stuff that you either
So this-
probably
This
know.
was set at the end of the day. The decision was made mid to late day to have this presentation. And so I asked Leslie, go ahead and send that to you, not necessarily so that you would have it for this discussion, but so that you can go look at it after this discussion, and you may have additional questions. This is informing, so there's no action coming out of this, these two briefings. So Leslie, please continue.
Correct, thank you. So, as you probably know, over the last couple of years, we've been the commission, Planning and Zoning Commission's been working very diligently on revising the zoning regulations for the general commercial zone, which is primarily from Broad Street at Thames, going north over bridge to, continuing bridge to the town border, and then North Street from the highway exit entrance down to just before the park. And it is the area, that area was chosen because it's really the area that is most suitable to kind of reinvention, if you will. It's most other places are developed and may need increased development, guardrails or incentives, but this is where there seems to be the most opportunity. And so it also follows along the lines of several studies that have been done over the last few years, starting with the POCD that was adopted in 2019. So the regulations that were passed by the commission on the 22nd of January of this year. They were, by the way, passed unanimously. Those and the regulations as the text amendment portion and also the map, that GC zone was divided into an additional 5 districts to be able to have a more nuanced way of looking at regulation of the land and what goes on it in a way that helps to start creating a neighborhood there and sort of a trend of the neighborhood as it goes from a lower density to a higher density, from Broad Street all the way to where the roller rink used to be and where the motel is. So there was a number of special meetings where the commission got together and met and talked about all of these things in great detail. I have to say, this is probably the best commission I've ever worked with. They were really amazing, very thoughtful. So again, that's the POCD was sort of the first step. Then there was the Thames Street and Economic Development Studies that followed on that. And we know that there's a housing need. There was a housing study done as well. We also looked at parking and transportation issues, not all of which we as the city even have the opportunity to affect. It's just, we can't put in a monorail where we want, but looking at the things that we can. Also, bikeability and walkability, which was a real strong force in the POCD. How do we make these areas more comfortable for people to walk and bike? And then finally, the resiliency study. So the regulations took into account all of these things and had to balance all of these things. So just quickly, the things that were really important, kind of the highest priority, was being able to allow multifamily housing and mixed use on properties in this area. Right now, with the regulations that are still in force, those existing regulations, only 2 dwelling units per parcel, not per acre, but per parcel. So it doesn't matter how big the parcel is. Is it tiny or is it big? Only 2 dwelling units per parcel are allowed. That means that if it was fully built out, we could only build 110 units, which may sound big, but it's actually very small when you're trying to make an impact on housing. Under the revised adopted regulations, the number is more in the neighborhood of the absolute maximum would be 1,572. And it would be done in a way based upon the other regulations that are included in terms of using buildings to create spaces in the public realm, the spaces in the streets, so that they felt like comfortable places. Right now, people don't really go for a stroll on Bridge Street. But if you look at the renderings at the end of the PowerPoint that's part of the presentation that's in the link that I sent to you, you'll see that there are renderings that show what it could be. And it was very compelling. Also reducing parking requirements for the housing so that there's a shared housing, a shared parking factor, which I won't go into now, but it is, so you're not providing parking on private properties that are, where you're doubling up, you're doing one for anybody who might be using retail during the day and one for housing. You enable those to switch. And then added design considerations. That doesn't mean that it's, buildings have to be Gothic or buildings have to be colonial. It just talks about the form of buildings and where they are, how close they are to the streets, where there are, what kinds of sort of layers between the street and the facade of the building can exist. And you'll see those in the renderings. The other thing is that as we've gone through all of these multitude of issues with the commission, again, they were always keeping in mind whether it was consistent with the Plan of Conservation and Development, whether it was consistent with other things we'd heard from other applications over the last few years. We've had some multifamily housing applications that have come through that were not successful and some that were successful. And what was it that made some work and some not work? Also, bringing forward a lot of best practices for planning, which have changed a lot over the years. Just so that you know, the last time the zoning regulations were updated in a holistic way was 2016. That's a long time to go without some serious revisions. It doesn't mean you have to overhaul and rewrite the whole thing, but without going over some serious revisions. So this was very timely. Even with the increase in the ability to add dwelling units at a dramatically higher rate under the adopted regulations, based on the numbers generated by a number of housing studies, including CCOG, we still have a deficiency, particularly because of the employees that we expect to be added to electric boat, but we still have a deficiency of over 5,000 dwelling units. Doesn't mean that the city has to accommodate all of those, just to give you a sense of what the regional demand is. And one of the things that the commission kept in mind and really kept in the forefront of their mind is we've been hearing about revitalizing Thames Street, revitalizing Thames Street for a very long time. And one of the things that I truly believe is that the way to revitalize Thames Street is to revitalize either end of Thames Street, so the Bridge Street area, and then the area down by Electric Boat. They're two totally different animals, so it's not like you can do them the same way. And then have that revitalization move toward the center. If you do that sort of a barbell approach, one of the things that you do is you find out where expansion or development or investment starts and stops along Thames Street. The other thing is you're not looking at, one of the reasons that Thames Street is a challenge is that it's a difficult street to walk, not because of lack of sidewalks or anything, but there's no protection from the weather. There's no shade protection in the summer for very extended stretches. So you're not, it's not like you're running from under this tree to under that tree. That makes a place more exciting and actually can promote development and promote people actually occupying space. But if you've only got that stretch and it's over a mile where there's no shade, there's no shelter, and if you look at the renderings in the PowerPoint, you'll see that that the buildings that are proposed in terms of form they include covered porches, they include, sort of glassed-in front areas with businesses on the first floor and offices or residences above, and the ability to change those uses over time, so we're not looking at buildings and tearing them down and to build something else that may or may not actually get built. Also looking at how to maximize the use of the different areas in that stretch based upon the changes in topography. The sites are all very different. If you look at the parcels along Thames Street on the water side, it's very different from the parcels on Bridge Street on the north side, where there's this sort of very slim piece of the top of a cliff, for lack of a better word, and then it drops and it's very low and it goes out toward the railroad. So we looked at ways to be able to maximize the use of that topography so that it could be, we're not looking at skyscrapers, with one exception at the very bottom of where Thames and Bridge come together. Those buildings can be up to 5 stories. Everything else is either 3 or 4 stories max at the street. Okay. In some cases where that cliff condition occurs, developers or property owners can build 2 below, so they could get 6 stories, but you only see 4 from any public area. We also looked at site sections. We knew that there was going to be some concern about where people could see from their houses and the views they've had up until now. And it's absolutely become an issue for people, not for families, 4 people have filed suit, and they've taken an appeal to Superior Court, which is why I'm here. This is not an executive session level conversation. There's not, everything I'm saying is totally public. But that appeal has put a stay on being able to implement these regulations. So we are now at a point where we could be, in fact, really getting a lot more of a tax base if these buildings were able to be built. People have been holding on to this property for a very long time, waiting for this opportunity. And Sierra and I both have been talking to people who either own or want to develop or want to purchase property in this area to be able to build housing for the most part. And so we're on hold right now. That's why I wanted to be, the commission has done an amazing job. They've done their job, staff has done their job. And these are regulations that the city should be very, very proud of. And now we just have to make our way through the court.
Okay, I'll open the floor for discussion. Counselor Sheffield?
How long do you think you anticipate a decision soon on the appeals part? Do we anticipate a timeframe when
Our,
this could be over? Or-
our attorney's given us a few different, generally in the wait time on the, for the land use court at this point is about a year.
Okay. So we should sit back and relax for a minute, then. Sadly.
We are continuing our work and moving on to other areas and other projects. It's not we're not stopping.
In addition to that, we're continuing to talk to developers
Absolutely,
as well.
yes.
Deputy Mayor Depot, do I see your hand? Okay, Counselor Piazza?
Mayor. So the appeals that are up in court, is it mostly from residences? They're looking at the values of their home due to their view from home?
There are 4 individuals who are listed. They all live on the same street. They all live on the same side of the street, I believe. And they're, I don't want to speak for them, but the major complaints were about the views and that it was the value of their home. I should be very clear here, just as I was with the commission and with the public, there is no legal protection to a view. So that's the law in Connecticut.
It's interesting by me because my house backs up to Fort Griswold. I'd be like so sad if somebody came all of a sudden and said, "Oh, we bought this lot and now we're building this apartment building behind you," you know. But it's good to know now. You know.
Understood, and we did our best. We even lowered by 1 story, one stretch, just below the stretch on the east side of Thames Street from a little bit north of Broad up to where the old police barracks were, right around there. There is a map that is also in the PowerPoint that you can see, and I think I actually attached it separately to I'm sure I did. I know I attached it separately in the email that I sent you all.
And that's 35 feet, right, is the max there?
40 feet is the max, which is only 5 feet taller than what's allowed now everywhere. So on Thames Street, in that area,
Right.
it
And then
does,
the topography, if you looked at a topo map, where would that street be? It's about 70 feet, I think, right?
I don't understand the question.
The height of that street.
So at the
Not
top of
Thames
the,
Street, the
I'm
street
sorry.
in question.
the top of the cliff along the Thames River is at about 20 feet above sea level. So those cliffs are about, from the top of the water to the top of the cliff, it's about 20 feet. Then from there up to the highest point in Groton Bank, which is 89.6 or something feet above sea level. So that difference is 60-something feet. And depending upon one of the things that was voiced was that there was this fear that there was going to be this, big wall, that it was, that none of those things can actually happen. None of those scary things that people said can, one way or another, by addressing the forms of buildings, that can't happen. So, it is a very nuanced and very the things that are in those regulations are there for a reason. Things like frontage build-out, and I mean, I could rattle off all kinds of terms that are not important. They're very important, but it's not. There are a lot of there's a lot of detail in all of these things, and they work together.
And when you're talking about cycling down Thames and walking down Thames in the shade and so forth and so on, so like my daughter and I went to New York for her visa. You know, there was a lot of places in New York that they have a lot of trees, obviously purposely planted, but then there were areas where, and it was hot then. So I'm looking at when I was a little girl biking down there and walking down there. I don't really remember it being that so hot I couldn't tolerate it. Although I would say, like, I have walked to the base when we didn't have a car, and military highway is awful. But coming, so that round corner from Thames around, that's kind of like you're most exposed. But I'm just wondering, so back in those days, even though we had a large number of EB, what's the forestry deficit that we've done since, like, in the last 50 years, let's say?
I can't speak to what we've taken down. I know that there is a commitment, and it is in both the POCD. I know the mayor has talked about this a great deal and has been committed to it. And the resiliency report that I will let Sierra get to also includes that. I think we have a lot of heat islands within the city, and unfortunately, Thames Street has sort of become one of those over time. And so one of the next things we're going to do is to look at how can we use development to make sure that those things are at least made better, if not rectified. When you look at the renderings toward the end of the PowerPoint, what you'll see is that there's room on private property for those for street trees. And just the planting of street trees, you know, every 20 feet or whatever, makes such a huge difference in both summer and winter. The shelter of buildings also makes huge difference. I mean, like, there are lots of things that are included in this that will enable us to control some of those negative climate influences.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, all right. Thank you, Leslie. Sierra, we'll turn it over to you to talk about resiliency.
Can I just remind you that I sent them to your council email address?
Okay, good evening, everyone. All right, we got some good time. So I'm mostly just probably going to talk from the screen. There's different videos and stuff, so sorry if my head is towards you or anything, but we can just get started. So how do I want to do this? All right, so for tonight's overview for the resiliency, I wanted to cover the 2022 resiliency plan, just do a little overview of what that was, some of the objectives that we've highlighted in there. Also to discuss a little bit more detail about stormwater mitigation and urban heat island, and then do a highlight of some of the ongoing projects that we have. So let me just minimize this for a second and move this out the way. All right, so the 2022 Community Resiliency Plan included a vulnerability and risk assessment to climate change and sea level rise, and we identified 7 objectives for the city to continue with. That risk assessment looked at flooding, stormwater, heat, and erosion, and all that and its impacts on the community, taking into consideration or the perspective of our social demographics, residents, commercials, our infrastructure, community resources, and our natural systems. So that whole risk assessment kind of resulted in this blob of colors. The city was divided into 6 different segments, and then each of these categories were ranked based off of their impact of what climate change or sea level rise would do for that. So you can notice in here, like the Five Corners area and in front of Electric Boat is high. A lot of that is associated just with the amount of impervious surface that is there and the stormwater implications and urban heat that is causing to that area, among a few other things, but you'll hear me talk a lot about that as we move forward. Some of the objectives that were identified in the plan, number one was to reduce the impact of stormwater flooding. 2, mitigate extreme heat impacts on residents and visitors. That's that Thames Street and walking and trying to have trees discussion. Enhance the resilience of local businesses. Create a flood resilient shoreline. Create a resilient transportation network. Increase resilience on socially vulnerable populations. And to lead by example or improve, improve the resilience of our municipal assets. And also us kind of just leading by example and taking that charge and getting our projects, having example projects that we can encourage developers and other organizations to do to kind of help us move these things forward. All right, so climate change in this term and this concept is viewed as the long-term shifts in temperature and weather patterns. These shifts can be caused by human activity, greenhouse gases, or the greenhouse effect. You guys may be experiencing, whether you're on the bandwagon of climate change or not, I think everybody can acknowledge that our storm systems have been different lately. They have been more intensified, and then with us being a community where we are surrounded by water on 3 sides, this is very prevalent for us to make sure that we pay attention to and see how we can be more resilient to address its impacts. And so the definition of resilience is a community's ability to recover or adapt from a significant event, either caused by nature or by human action. And most of you can address climate change in different fashions. It's either mitigation or resilience, and a lot of my work have been in the resilience lens of looking at the infrastructure, looking at preparedness, and also addressing things with like green infrastructure and how we could just build more resiliently. So, in regards to climate change and stormwater flooding, this graphic kind of just goes into thinking about Five Corners as an example, is that paved or impervious surfaces force water directly into our drainage system. This runoff can collect pollutants, and this drainage system can actually overwhelm our system. We would like to see more green space and vegetation there because that would allow the water to actually infiltrate into the ground, and then the vegetation helps actually hold the water that is clicking through pretty quickly, in place. This slows the water flow into the drainage system and also helps filter out the pollutants as well. So definitely want more trees. Our goal is to slow the flow and increase vegetation. Some examples of strategies that are actually already being implemented. You know that we have a rain barrel initiative that's taking place now. You can order your rain barrels. I believe there's a link online, but it's a great initiative through our Public Works Department. And then also we're doing installations of rain gardens around the city. And I'll have more examples of that as we go forward.
Councilor Sheffield?
Now, can people who rent get those barrels as well? Or, I mean, they may have to ask their landlord, I guess, possibly, but is that accessible for those, you know?
I'm going to say I definitely think they'll have to coordinate with their landlords, but it is open to anybody can purchase the rain barrels. But yes, if you rent, please connect with your landlord, especially on that installation.
Okay, thank you.
In regards to urban heat, you hear us kind of mention this a lot, and it can be impacted by surface, impervious surface, lack of vegetation, back to that human activity, and then the type of materials that we actually use on our buildings. And it's kind of like if you're walking down the street, it's that heat or experience that you're feeling. That's that urban heat island. So the city of Groton is actually an environmental justice community. So this is something that is kind of high on our radar to try to improve, but also it impacts public health and energy use. I came across this small video kind of about urban heat, but it's starting to mesh the conversation of a lot of the things that we can do to address stormwater mitigation are also things that address urban heat islands. And so this graphic kind of goes through what some of those strategies could be and ways that we can kind of incorporate it. So I won't keep letting it play, but I encourage you to go back and look at some of these links in more detail. So in regards to project highlights, things that we have going on now, we have the 5 Corner Stormwater Assessment. So this is a project that we have partnered with the Nature Conservancy, and Fussin and O'Neill is the contractor that we are working with. We are going to conduct a comprehensive stormwater runoff study and feasibility assessment for tree plantings within the 5 Corners neighborhood. And right now that is, if we were, City of Groton is long, so it's like from Fort Griswold to Rainview, everything in the middle of that is kind of our focus area for this project. So we will be having teams going out to do some screening of the pipe systems to start that assessment work. We are in the process of looking for people for our steering committee. So I do welcome any counselor that may be interested to learn a little bit more about this project or help assess the recommendations and come up with brainstorm and come up with different strategies of how to move projects forward. We are looking for some support with the committee. The committee will meet 3 times over the course of the project to do a deep dive into those recommendations. And right now also, the Nature Conservancy is doing door knocking in the neighborhoods. They're trying to work with any resident that may want to plant trees on their property that would also benefit the community as well. So if anybody's also interested, or if you know anyone, please, you can give them my contact information and we can put them in touch with the team so that they could be part of this process as well. Also just wanted to highlight some of the images that we've got to kind of support this study. So there's been sheet flow observed coming down Hamilton Street kind of to, so we know where 5 Corners is, but if you kind of go down towards EB, there's like another little 4 corner spot where Thames, Eastern, Smith, and Pequannock meet. So these are kind of images that lead to that point. And we've already have seen the impacts of the storms kind of flooding that intersection, and even had to do a project with Electric Boat in town of Groton to fix a retaining wall not that long ago because of the impacts that we're seeing here. So this is timely for us to do the assessment that will help us identify what the projects are that we need to then move forward with. Are there any questions in regards to that? Okay.
Comment. So looking at this picture, especially those stairs, I traversed those many, many times as a young girl. And along that street, I'm thinking that all along that street up, when you go up there into Denison and Oak and Hamilton and so forth, that there was definitely more vegetation. And I'm wondering if that's really a large impact of this water coming down.
I was saying previously there was, and you see a reduction in the years of vegetation in that neighborhood?
Right, like I've never, ever, ever seen the rain come down like that before when I was younger, ever.
And the thing is now too, though, we're getting way more rain than we have back in the day, and then it's hot and we're getting more, and our days are hotter. So it's like, it's not gonna be a comparison from back in the day to now, cause it's like the conditions we're dealing with are completely different, but I do think the vegetation probably has something to, do with, or the lack of vegetation has something to do with that stormwater flow that we're seeing.
Yeah, because
you're-
when you went around that area, everybody had a garden. Almost their entire yard was garden. I mean, where we lived on Dennison, it was a gravel parking lot, so it's more pervious. You know, it wasn't concrete, but then they still had a garden, and then the next house had a garden, and, you know, and we're talking like large gardens, not like small ones, you know. Everybody had a garden, now it's like parking lot, parking lot, parking lot,
yeah.
parking lot.
So
Yep.
your point is recognized. One of the challenges we have is we do have a lot of paved areas there. And so with the impervious surface, you're getting a lot of sheet flow, and that's what directs that. If you remember when when we repaved Thames Street, they actually put a 4-foot wide pipe in the road and help direct the waterways, to help minimize that kind of thing. And then some of those stormwater drains outflowed into EB, onto EB's property. EB has now closed those off due to security measures. And so we're having to look at the impact of that. And I'm talking to EB about, is there a way that we can get those back, get them opened and still have security for Electric Boat Shipyard? In addition to that, we're also looking at, instead of paving, get people to put gravel lots or some kind of a pervious surface. We're gonna be doing, putting some pervious pavers going up, so going from the parking lot at Pavilion 5 around that parking lot, there's gonna be pervious pavers put there. And also going up to the tennis courts. And that'll be done later this year. But that was an intentional project when the funds were diverted from Lake George, because we needed to go and test the material that was in there. So, you know, we're doing some locally. We're also talking to the owners and developers to see if we can get them to help us with this, especially from the sheet flow aspect. Because the sheet flow of the water is just one part. You also, the same impervious surface gives you a heat island. And that's not good. And the fact that we don't have trees, then that makes it even worse, because you don't have shading effect. You also don't have CO2 absorption, those kinds of things. So we're trying to review, look at, and address those kinds of issues. So Sierra, I'll turn it back over to you.
Any other questions on Five Corners? Remember, if you want to serve on the steering committee, just let me know. All right, so the Southeastern Connecticut Youth Climate Summit, this has been a really fun partnership. So this is a partnership with the Marine Science High School in the town of Groton. We have been working with the environmental club at the school to kind of put together a platform for students to be able to talk about climate change and kind of how that is impacting them in ways that they want to make improvements, or just fields that they want to study later on. So we kind of started out with a really small group back in 2024, where it was just like a listening session at the beach, and that has turned into 2 youth climate summits. The last one we held was in February, and we had over 200 students come from 8 different schools. We were housed at the Pequot Museum hosted us this year, and it was just really amazing to kind of just see all the students come together. I'm going to be respectful of time, but there's NBC did a clip on the students and kind of what they were doing. So it's a 3-minute clip. I do encourage you guys to kind of go watch it. It is nice to kind of hear the youth give their perspective, and the fact that this program was an effort that was designed by youth for youth kind of made it even more meaningful. So this was a really fun project. For the next, questions in regards to the Youth Climate Summit? The next one is My Coast. So My Coast is an initiative that is being led by Connecticut NER. It is going to be a tool that allows residents to submit photos of flood events and high tides to a public database. This information can then be used by municipalities to improve planning for local flood events and to increase public awareness about coastal flooding. There are 2 workshops that are coming up. The first one is in April. It will be a webinar. It's going to be an overview of the actual tool and kind of how it is you can use it. And then the second is an in-person workshop at UConn Avery Point, where we will have guests from Rhode Island. Actually has already implemented the tool, and they already have engagement and plans kind of spinning from this. So they're going to come and talk to us about how they're using it, so we can start to develop ideas of how this can be a more beneficial tool. So there is a registration link to these workshops within the presentation if you would like to sign up. Any questions for this one? The next project is with the Connecticut Department of Connecticut Deep. They are doing a coastal public access fellowship program, which is doing a review of all the coastal access points in Connecticut and starting to identify the existing public assets, what improvements they may need, whether there's opportunities to establish additional sites, also looking at improving signage to those sites, developing outreach material, and doing some improvements to the online database that shares this information out. So we are in the planning stage of this. They are setting up a steering committee for this project also. So if anybody is interested in participating, please let me know. The next project that we have going on is a coastal hazards analysis, modeling, and prediction system. So this is also a project that is being led by Connecticut Deep. Basically, it is a data, they're developing a database that emergency managers, our infrastructure staff, and planners could use to help make better decisions based off of consequences that we may face of different storm scenarios. So they basically map out our existing conditions, facilities, and then do different modeling for different storm projections, so we can have actual kind of real-time data of what that impact may be, so we can make better plans for it. So we are in the data collection part of this, so they are doing some site assessments. They did visit the PAF system on Thames Street, and they are reviewing a couple other sites along the coast. You can see that all this highlighted blue is the main focus area of this project. No questions for this. Another initiative we're working on is called Think at the Sink. It is a resident campaign to better educate on not putting fats, rags, oils, and grease down our sewer, down your sinks or drains, and kind of how that impacts our systems, but also kind of educating other people of basic, better ways to recycle, better ways to get rid of, dispose of your waste. This is through the Baker Cove Watershed Committee, and also partnership with the town of Groton. I've been working with Michelle Mitlin over there. We are doing outreach to the apartment complexes, so there's better education on how those systems kind of work, and engagement with the renters. All right, next, also with the Baker Cove Watershed Committee, we have an upcoming cleanup at Birch Plain Creek. It's gonna be on April 11th at 9 a.m. If you are available, we would love for you guys to come and join us. It should be about a 2-hour set, and yeah, it's a really good time. This is a partnership that includes the Mystic Aquarium, Connecticut NER, and also the town of Groton. So circling back on the rain gardens, so last year we installed about 1,000 square feet of rain gardens. Three ended up being 3 gardens at Birch Plain Creek, and then 1 garden here at Washington Park. So this will be the first year that we will see them come to bloom. So I'm actually looking excited to do that. But this was a good partnership and support from our Public Works office and our Parks and Recs department. This year, we are looking to do approximately 2,000 square feet of rain gardens, actually here at the Municipal building. It will be a total of 4 gardens that are in the front, and it's really designed to try to mitigate the stormwater runoff from the parking lot, preventing it, 1, from getting into our system, and 2, into the Birch Plain Creek, which is kind of off to the side over here. So this is projects in planning. We're getting closer and closer to to the installation date, which we will stay tuned for because we are going to need more volunteers to help with that as well. Also, we have the Heat Smart Groton campaign that is going on to help residents learn 3 steps to be more energy smart. That is including improve your home's energy efficiency by getting a home efficiency service, insulating your home and making other improvements, and considering switching your heating and cooling services to a more energy efficient heat pump. So this program is still going on. It is it's a great program. I will at least say explore it. It is a partnership between Groton Utilities, Pace, and Lantern. Lantern are the contractors that are probably going to go on site to do the assessment and the work. We have heard really good reviews of their just respect and just the quality of their work and the details that they go into with the client. So please share this program with people you may feel can benefit. And then lastly, we have the FEMA Direct Technical Assistant Program. So basically, this is 3 years of technical assistance that we get from FEMA to actually develop projects for FEMA funding. So for instance, 5 Corners. We're doing all this work to assess what are the recommendations or what are the projects that we need to move forward. In this scenario, we could move that entire project forward to FEMA to have them assess, okay, now this is the project, now what funding could you move forward with? So that's just an example. We've talked about tide gates, we talked about a few other things. So we're in the process now of working with staff to understand what type of projects we would like for FEMA to explore and work with us on. However, this is currently paused. Since this is a federal program, our contract and everything is in place. They don't feel as though it's going to be taken away from us, but they're just currently at a pause until they get more direction from their leadership of how things are going to play out. But I'm looking forward to this. This was a joint application between the town of Groton and Groton Knowing, so Groton Long Point. So it's nice to kind of see the collaboration there, and also some of these projects obviously cross jurisdictions, so they would need to be a group effort anyway. And that's about all I had for today.
We'll open the floor for questions. Anybody has any questions? Deputy Mayor Depot?
I don't have any questions, actually. I think it's always nice to get an update of what's happening in the economic development planning world. And I think, is this presentation going to be up on our website anywhere that that residents can see it, or pieces of it?
Sure, I can work on making sure that's there.
Like some of the slides have direct links to register for things, so I know that we've been posting on Facebook about certain things, events. But I think a lot of the presentation put together it's really informative for residents who are interested in these things. Like, here's 12 options of ways you can get involved and help, all of these things that we're working on. I do think that people are looking to engage more locally on, resiliency projects. I know I've heard a lot about it lately, especially with all these big storms we've been having, so. And I know anyone that drives down by Five Corners or Eastern Point Road when there's a storm is well aware of these issues, because you can't escape them driving through the city, so. If anyone's interested, also, I'm sure as usual, they can contact the mayor's office or your office. Because there are a lot of opportunities for residents to collaborate and help their neighbors and help all of these things and all of these little things that we're changing. And, like Councilor Piazza was saying, like when there was more vegetation, there seemed to be less runoff. Those little things make a difference. So if residents are interested in helping us, there are a lot of opportunities and a lot of variety of ways they can get involved. So thank you for putting that all together.
Any other comments? Counselor Piazza?
Just wanted to say thank you for all your work in this, and it's nice to see like rain gardens coming in and, things actually being implemented. So I appreciate everybody that's involved and especially all your time.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Sierra, thank you, Leslie. I will take a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. For the record, Counselor Norris texted me and he left at 7:30. So we are adjourned. Thank you all for coming out.
Thank you. Thank you.